afternoon, good evening all, it's Bear here. And I'd like to welcome you to my YouTube channel, A Box With No Lid. A channel dedicated to not just bringing awareness and understanding, but also ways of learning how to heal from complex trauma. Exploring all the different facets that construct us, so that we have the tools to be able to truly heal from our traumatic experiences and our traumatic past. Now, in today's video, I want to start to explore something that will take several videos and they'll be spread out. But I want to start to explore epigenetics, a term that I've referred to in a couple of previous videos. But in this one, I want to start to lay the reasons of why it is so important. Now, epigenetics is the scientific study of what we inherit from our ancestors. And it primarily, in Western science, goes through gene expression when you're looking at physiological hardships. But I want to look at it more in where it's headed, which is in what we inherit from perception, interpretations, and understandings and memories. And the evidence for the value of this lies in there is a reason why every single culture on Earth has always told stories about its ancestors, about the family members that have gone before. There is a reason why all ancient writings are primarily written from a familial or ancestral perspective, recording the day-to-day realities and lives of those that have gone before. And the reason is because all their experiences construct us, our personality, our pursuits and beliefs are all shaped and constructed from the experiences of our bloodline ancestry. All of it. And when we're trying to heal from trauma, we are rebuilding a person. We are relearning, not just trying to become a person that we were before. We are trying to recreate the person that we would be if we hadn't have gone through those experiences. So having an understanding of this is really important. Now, you can go into as much detail in your pursuit of history as you wish. And if you're like me, being an adoptee, it's an extremely difficult thing to do. But even having only a couple of pieces of the puzzle can give you a vast understanding. And an example of this in my own story is my father was a Vietnam vet. My father fought in the Vietnam War. This I know. And I also know that my mother ran from family violence and also with the hope of keeping me, particularly in the last trimester of her pregnancy. Just those two, when I've broken them down from this perspective, I understand why I was born with a predisposition to a heightened trauma response. I understand why I have a predisposition to CPTSD and why it became so embedded through my traumatic experiences. And I know that being born from a fear state on both sides, my mother was terrified, my father was terrified, is why I have such an extreme response to threat biologically. It's a pity that Western medicine doesn't value this stuff yet. But for me, I don't feel such a freak because of my entire life. I've had more extreme reactions than those around have said you should. This is not possible. So it helps me to get a grounding, and if you start to delve into research papers, the evidence is there, the studies are there, the clinical data is there. So I don't feel such a freak at my responses and difficulties and how I've ended up where I've ended up through the choices that I've made in my survival states because of these pieces of information. It takes some of the blame off me because this, we all know, any trauma survivors know, this world loves to make it our fault. And I'm telling you, it's not. We are constructed from the experiences of those that have gone before. To begin to explore this, and as I say, go into as much detail as you would like. But the first place is look at where your ancestors came from, the countries and states and areas, the country, the ecologies that they came from, the weather, how things grew, whether it was a cold climate, a warm climate, those sorts of things. Have a look at the familial or society structure, the cultures of those areas. What were the main emphasis and belief systems? What were the main religions? All these things give you a key understanding of the societal structure. Also look at the family structures. Look at how prevalent family breakdowns are. Look at what women went through. Look at what men went through to survive. And all these different things that will give you an idea of the personalities and the experiences and memories of your bloodline family. Starting with your parents and grandparents and great-grandparents, but go back as far as you possibly can. And sometimes it can only be in a broader sense. To give an easy example of this, if you have, say, a European ancestry and it goes back to Austria, it's easy to read about the history of Austria, to know that, well, this is most likely what they went through. So it's enough to give you an idea or a framework. And also look at, through your parents and grandparents, their solutions and their avoidances, how they solved the problems that their environment put before them, and also how they avoided the history of addiction and alcoholism, the history of fundamental religion or fundamentalistic beliefs or aggression or violence or whatever was used to avoid actually resolving things. Take all this down on sheets of paper and then get yourself one of those poster boards and create a mind map and just put the words, cold climate, marital breakdown, yes, addiction, yes, migration, yes, this, yes, that. So you can start to sit back and look at, well, I feel this and how that was constructed from this that's before me. I found you got to give a bit of time to this, and it takes a little effort, but it helps you to construct why you are you. It helps you to see the predispositions and the responses, because you have constructed yourself. We all have constructed ourselves, as I said, from the memories, perceptions, interpretations, beliefs, interactions, environmental responses, the types of food and all this sort of stuff that our ancestors, they constructed us, constructed our physiology, our nervous system, our gene expression, what genes are turned on, what genes are turned off, our medical histories, all these different things create us. And for me, it's a way of being able to look at what created you. And yes, being an adoptee, this is probably a little disproportionate as importance, because I have no ability to find biological family because of how I was taken and the way records are redacted and destroyed. So, and as a young child, with the deficit aspect, I needed to create an image of what my mom and dad would have been like and what my grandma and grandpas would have been like. But from that deficit, and then when I started to look at Professor Rachel Yehuda's work with first-generation Holocaust survivors and all these interplays with the goal of understanding as to why our world is so violent and why our world ignores the harm that it's doing, it led me to this spot of going, well, we're all so constructed by our past. when I was in First Nation communities in the US and Canada and trying to look at how, working with communities and trying to learn ways to resolve generational trauma. Epigenetics is all part of this, because trauma is passed on not only through our genes, but through the environment that our genes create. When you're looking at poverty and First Nation communities, you can see very clearly the steps and the aftermath of things. And if we really want to start to break down, and as I said, the goal of this channel is to actually heal trauma, not manage it, or not manage its symptoms. But to heal it, we need to understand the construction of it. And to heal, we need to rebuild who we are, which means we need to understand what constructed us. And as I do everything from a natural perspective, from the way we're designed to, we are designed, we constructed ourselves, our personality, our beliefs and pursuits and everything from all that information we've inherited. Having an understanding of it will help you to rebuild you, the person you would be without going through those experiences, the person you should and would be from learning from those experiences and never having to go there again. So please understand the importance of this. And I will do more videos on epigenetics. It plays a huge part in our healing journeys, and also understanding what structures create trauma. That is another part of this epigenetic journey, is the ecologies. As I said, generational trauma, intergenerational trauma is an ecology that gets passed down. And if we really want to make a better world, and if we really want to heal ourselves, we need to understand what constructed us and what constructed our ecologies, the world we are in. It also gives us key pieces of information to help us build that healing scaffold. If what our ancestors did, within their healing states, and with every survival state, there's also healing components. We can find those key pieces. We can find key foods that our body will, we can feed that autonomic sense that we're not under threat. And I'll get into that in another video. But it's this thing of all this information tied up within what we've inherited, and taking the time to start to build a way of looking at it is really important. I cannot emphasize that enough. So I hope this video wasn't too confusing. As I'm trying to compress such a broad subject into a short introduction. But as always, be kind, be gentle with yourself. Take the time. You are worth the investment of the time to learn everything you need to be able to truly heal. And as always, feel free to message me, comment, or email. And I'll see you next time.